Okay. Welcome everyone to the Wednesday, June 18th, 2025, Garrison Board of Education regular business meeting, and my personal favorite meeting of the year. We have our tenure and recognition today. Trustee, would you call the roll, please?
Jocelyn Apicella. Here. Eric Arnold. Here. Jennifer Harrison Wilson. Here. Dan Jasnow. Here. Peter Lesser. Here. Ken Shaw. Here. Sarah Tormey.
Here. Brian, please pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, that brings me to accept agenda changes. Do I have any recommended changes for the board this evening? Be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby accept the agenda as presented. May I have a motion, please? Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Abstention. Great, that brings me to board president's remarks. I'm going to begin with a congratulations to our Garrison High School students who are graduating this year from Haldane High School and James O'Neill High School. We don't have any seniors at Putnam Valley High School this year. And we just wanted to note some of the schools they are attending. This includes Dallas Community College, University of Tampa, Tufts University, Arizona State University, Pace University, Mercy University, SUNY Oswego, SUNY Orange, SUNY Portland, Leeds Beckett University, University of Rhode Island, SUNY Cobskill, Oklahoma State University. I know, Greg, you went to the Haldane graduation this past weekend, on Friday?
Yeah, I went to the Haldane graduation, and congratulations to all of the Haldane seniors and the Garrison residents. It was a remarkable event. The rain held out, which was really a good call on Carl. Thank you, Carl, and Julia Smithson. And next week I get to attend the James O'Neill, so a time of celebration for sure.
Thank you for attending the O'Neill graduation on behalf of the board. I also want to remind the board that we have a summer retreat scheduled for Monday, July 28th from 5 to 9 p.m. So please keep that in your calendars. If that timing doesn't work, you have to reach out to Dusty, but we're hoping to move forward with that. And then I also wanted to take a moment and thank my fellow board members, both the ones around the table today and the ones from the past, for the privilege of serving you as president for the past 5 years. While I love every minute of this, I think it's time to pass the role to another member. It is my sincere hope, I know the board knows this, but we actually have an audience tonight, so I'm excited to share this, that I really hope the board will support Dan. He has dedicated a lot of time this past year in the role as VP to really learning this role and what it entails. And I just want to thank everyone for a wonderful year of really listening to each other, even when we disagree, being respectful. I think he set a good example, I hope, for our school community and beyond. So I just wanted to say thank you, and it's been so much fun to do this, and I'm so excited for Dan to take over. So, I'm sure you're all sitting listening to me anyway. He did say that he might consider letting me keep the chair of the audit committee, and I really like that. All right. I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Greg for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Sarah. My remarks tonight will be brief because there's a lot of celebration to happen this evening and a lot of recognition as well. I just want to let everybody know that we are in our celebratory mode here at GUFS, and we had our 8th grade award ceremony, which was really well attended, and we're so proud of our 8th grade students for all their accomplishments this year. We had our primary field day, and that was a big hit, and coming up is our 3 through 8 field day, so again, we're really celebrating a year of success. And lastly, I had the privilege of joining our 7th and 8th graders for our annual end of the year school dance, which was such a great event. I did force both the boys and the girls to kind of commingle and dance. They did have a DJ, and I was successful and happy to report. By the end, they were definitely having a great time. So I want to thank everybody who made all of these events possible. Celebrating our students, celebrating their success is incredibly important for us. Just a couple of reminders. Tomorrow schools are closed, so please parents do not send your students in. Again, on June 20th is our field day. Our pre-K graduation is 9:15 a.m. On the 23rd. Graduation for our 8th graders is 6 p.m. on June 23rd. And our last day of school, and this includes 8th graders, so yes, you do have to come. We are going to do our last day of school on the 24th, and dismissal is at 11:15 a.m. And for those of you who are having your students come to our Summer Scholars Program, that program begins on July 7th, and our board is first meeting of the new year, the reorganizational business meeting is on July 9th. This is our last meeting of the year. I want to wish everybody a wonderful, relaxing, enjoyable summer, and I want to thank our amazing educators and our staff, our remarkable Board of Education, our families, our incredible students. Some of you may hear from this evening. Our PTA, who has been incredibly supportive of all the events, and last, GSEP, for all of their grant awards and the support that they provide to the school and our students. So I wish everybody a joyful, happy, and relaxing summer. That concludes my superintendent's report.
Thank you very much. That is going to bring us to the award of tenure. So I'm going to begin with the recommended action, and then I will turn this over to Greg and Allison to speak. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, does hereby award tenure to Natalie Beglin, special education teacher, in the tenure area of special education effective September 2nd, 2025. May I have a motion, please? Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Abstentions? Bring sodium over to you and Allison.
Great. At this time, I'm going to have Principal Allison Emick say a few words on behalf of the district and the school. Congratulate Natalie on awarding of tenure.
Thank you so much, Greg. Okay, I had to pare this down. I could go on and on about that. Awarding tenure is one of the most important things that we do as a district, hands down. It just means that you're here with us, hopefully forever. And we're so grateful. So with that being said, it is with great enthusiasm and confidence that I recommend Natalie Beglin, that we recommended her for tenure at Garrison Union Free School District. Over the past 3 years, Natalie has consistently demonstrated deep expertise, commitment, dedication, and a measurable impact as a special education teacher. She is highly respected by colleagues and families and has become an integral member of our school community. Natalie is a knowledgeable and reflective educator who brings a calm, supportive presence to every classroom. She creates learning environments where students feel safe to participate and take academic risks. She sets the conditions essential for developing foundational skills and critical thinking. Her instruction is thoughtfully designed, it's responsive to student needs, and it's grounded in best practices. Currently, Natalie has taken several advanced coursework in Morton reading instruction. She pushes herself. Natalie continues to deepen her knowledge of the science of reading. Her individualized, evidence-based approach has led to significant growth in students' reading abilities, particularly for our most complex learners. Through her work, she not only supports students' progress, but also contributes to the overall advancement of reading instruction in house. Natalie holds high expectations for all learners and ensures that every lesson that she designs is aligned with grade level standards, while also accessible through appropriate scaffolds. Her instruction, whether it's in reading, writing, math, science, it doesn't matter. She engages her students in both foundational learning and higher order thinking, aligning seamlessly with our vision of the graduate. She fosters independence, problem solving, and reflective thinking, equipping students with the skills that they need in order to thrive. Over the past 3 years, Natalie has taught both elementary and in middle school settings, often in collaborative teaching models. She is a valued, kind of like a co-teacher. We don't call it co-teacher, we call it consultant teacher direct. And she is known for her flexibility, her shared leadership, and her commitment to inclusive practices. Her presence in the general education classroom enhances the experience for all students, not just students with individualized education programs. Natalie also, she builds, strong, respectful relationships with the families. She's an effective communicator. She regularly communicates and openly and transparently sharing both student celebrations and areas for growth with compassion and evidence-based insights. From her first year at Guffs, Natalie distinguished herself as a thoughtful, reliable, and student-centered educator. She is focused, she's adaptable, and she is solution-oriented, qualities that have only strengthened over her time here at Guffs. Today, she is a trusted leader within our special education team and a model of professionalism. Natalie's commitment to students, her instructional expertise, and her collaborative approach make her invaluable here at Guffs. I am so honored and happy for you tonight, for your family. This is a big deal. Mom is being honored, and I hope you're as proud of her as I am, as we all are. So Natalie, can you come on up to the podium, please?
We're going to give you a token of our appreciation and congratulate you, and we're going to take a photo with the board president up here, if you don't mind. Yep, in the middle.
Okay.
Either side.
Oh my gosh, we're all in blue.
You do
Very nice.
Wow.
Like all the right shades of blue.
I chose her.
Congratulations to you.
So at this time, as we continue our celebration, we want to also recognize Debbie Earl. As we approach the end of the school year, we really want to take a moment to recognize Debbie. After 27 years, she'll be leaving Garrison. She's dedicated to the school community for so many years. She's served different roles over those years, most recently as a pre-K teacher. And throughout her tenure, Debbie has consistently demonstrated deep care for her students, and she has committed to supporting their learning and their development in the classroom. And as we see tonight, one of the hallmark elements of Debbie is the long-lasting relationships she builds with people, and their families and her colleagues, and that all contributed to our broader community. So on behalf of the Board of Education and myself, we would like to extend our gratitude to you, Debbie, for your years of dedicated service to Garrison. We wish you all the best as you take on a new role as principal of Carl L. Dixon Primary School in Elmsford. It's no small task, but we know you're up to it. And we do appreciate the contributions you have made to our school community. But before we award you a little token of our appreciation, I would love to call up Aria and Clara, because I know they want to say something.
So we wrote a little speech for Miss Earl. Children learn more from who you are than what you teach. This quote is a perfect example of who Mrs. Earl is, not just as a teacher, but as so much more. Since 5th grade, Mrs. Earl has proven herself to be worthy of our extended attention. But aside from that, she's also been someone we trust, admire, and love. We have had many memories with Mrs. Earl from not just our 5th grade year, but with her, but beyond. Mrs. Earl is a kind, funny, and loving person and teacher. We will forever be grateful for all the treasury and all the memories that we've shared with her. And we will always enjoy going down to her room and helping ourselves to her and our snacks, of course. Our class lessons always ended with laughter and understanding. Mrs. Earl was always so enthusiastic about our passion projects as well, and loved seeing our eyes filled with stars. Back in 5th grade, I was super into writing short stories, so I brought in my current piece that I was working on and showed it to Mrs. Earl. And I got it back the next day, filled with encouraging words and connections to books we had been reading as a class. The kind words I received that day inspired me to pursue my passion for writing.
Our gossip sessions with her and Miss Clark are unmatched, and we always appreciate their jokes. Miss Earl is full of life, and it truly shows through her vibrant and lively personality. She likes to make jokes and always loved playing pranks on us in 5th grade. Of course, we were able to get her back from time to time. She always tried to make lessons as fun and entertaining as she could, which made our last year of elementary school so special. Those types of engagements really make your memories with the teacher incredibly special. We will always remember and admire Ms. Earl Ms. Earl is an all-around amazing person and teacher, and any school would be lucky to have her. Although we are sad she is leaving and we won't see her when we come back to visit, we know that she will thrive at her new school and that she will cast her energy, light, and wonderful personality on a new, especially fortunate group of people. We are going to miss her so much. We love you, Ms. Earl, but we love your snacks more.
Little gift for you. Thank you for all your years of service. You just take a little picture.
Don't you keep together? 1, 2. Thank you.
Now, Sarah, you may not know this, but we also want to take a moment to celebrate and recognize you for your 5 years of service as board president. So it is both an honor and a privilege to recognize someone whose leadership, dedication, unwavering commitment has left an incredible mark on the Garrison Union Free School District, our board president, Sarah Torrey. For the past For the past 5 years, Sarah served as board president with a level of dedication that is truly extraordinary. Her steady hand and wisdom have guided Garrison through times of change, growth, and unprecedented challenge. Under her leadership, we have seen remarkable progress in academic achievement, staffing stability, and financial health. These are not just metrics. They are the foundation of a thriving school district, and they are a direct reflection of her vision and her perseverance. What many may not see are the countless hours Sarah has spent at board meetings, committee discussions, community forums. Her calendar has been filled with late nights, early mornings, and everything in between. And through it all, she has remained focused on what matters most: our students, our staff, and the future of the Garrison schools. Now, I've worked with many board members over the years, and you kind of set me up for this earlier, but I have to say, I never met any board member who gets quite excited about school district financial audits as Sarah does. I mean, when board members are asked, hey, do you want to serve on the audit committee? Most of them say like, where's the nearest exit? No way, no how. But Sarah leans in, she asks questions, and somehow makes the statement of cash receipts, cash balances, and disbursements of the extracurricular activity fund sound exciting. And that's a gift. On a personal note, Sarah, I want to thank you for your guidance, trust, and your belief in me as superintendent. Your support has meant more than I can express, and your leadership has not only made my job easier, but it has made it deeply fulfilling. As you conclude your tenure as board president, know that your legacy will continue to shape this district for years to come. And we are so glad you're going to remain on as a trustee. And you have set the bar high, sorry, Dan, and we are all better for it. Please join me in giving a heartfelt round of applause to Sarah Tormey for her years of extraordinary leadership. And I'm going to ask that Ryan Annabelle, is Jameson here? Yeah. And Jameson, I see that there. And Jameson, come up and join me as we present a token of our appreciation to your mom. We're not picking this up now. We'll get that. Yes. Thank you. She does.
That was very sweet and unexpected. We are going to pause now for a break in the meeting for a brief reception to celebrate Ms. Beglin and Ms. Earl, and yes, thank you so much. I will try to find that. First presentation. We are recording? Yes. Cool. Okay, thank you. This is a fund balance, reserve funds update. I'm going to turn it over to Joe.
Thank you very much. So we do have some designated reserves, and over the past few years, several of the restricted reserves were used to support operations. So we have two reserve funds that we're going to talk about tonight, and that's the tax cert reserve, which is below its target, and the teacher's retirement reserve is below its target. So this is the current condition of the reserves. So we have a reserve for unemployment and insurance. So we are self-funded for unemployment. So if anyone gets laid off, we pay the claims directly. And then there is a retirement contribution reserve. So this is the reserve for the labor class that's in the employees' retirement system, and then the teacher's retirement system. The amount that's in there currently is only $60,000, which was funded last year. The reserve for tax service is $45,000. Employee benefit reserve fund, that is for funds that are paid to employees when they depart for retirement. That includes any kind of retirement payouts for unused sick time and things like that. And then we have a capital reserve. If you remember, the capital reserve was tapped a few years ago to put a contribution to the water heaters that we talked about at the last presentation. And then we have the reserve for debt service. The reserve for debt service can only be used for debt service expenditures, and use of the debt service fund is something that changes the tax cap calculation. Basically, it's reduced by whatever you use out of the reserve. So what we'd like to do is increase the TRS reserve. There is a guideline from New York State that you can have up to 10% of your covered salaries that are part of the teacher's retirement system in the reserve, and you can only put 2% in per year. So if we put in another $60,000 and do that for the next few years, that will get the reserve to the target. And the tax cert reserve, we currently have a balance of 45,000 in there. We'd like to target 100,000 for that, and we would recommend funding it to the target with that amount, 54,000. And adding to those reserves will bring the undesignated fund balance closer to 4% by the year end. It will not be at 4%, but by funding some of the reserves out of undesignated fund balance, that will help. So are there any questions?
Okay, thank you, Joe. We have approval for this later on the agenda. Great. All right, that brings us to our next discussion, which is a school lunch discussion. So if you recall from the last meeting, in the superintendent's report, Greg presented that our previous partner was not able to work with us. I really want to thank Greg and Joe, who now continue to track down another partner, and have really led the charge on these discussions. It's a great example of teamwork and also just real commitment to finding a solution to the question this board has asked, is this feasible? As well as learning a ton about how the federal lunch system works. So the goal for the discussion today, we don't have a contract, so I want to start right there for us to review. So there are a lot of still unknowns, but it's to sort of state where we are, give the community an update, see if there's any further questions, really answer the question on the board's willingness to move forward, even though the federal program would mean eliminating pizza lunch on Fridays, and then just talk about next steps, keeping in mind the timeline set by the state to make this happen. So that's sort of where we're at. I'm going to turn it over to Greg to speak about the survey results and where we're at with our possible partner who shall not be named.
Yes, we actually have some update as recent as this morning. Joe had a conversation with the company that is the food service vendor for the district that shall not be named, as well as their business official. And I will say we're making more progress. We had a discussion with them about if we became part of the federal school lunch program as an RA under their FSA, what would that mean? What additional costs would we have to incur based upon additional paperwork that needs to be done? Part of the federal school lunch program is you have to do a lot of accounting for the meals that you serve, the macronutrients in each meal that is provided, the amount that you serve, and then is the only way a school district will get reimbursement per meal for that. So if we partner with the district and we become part of their system, their school food authority, we would have to make sure we have a point of sale system, and someone, not us, we don't have the capacity to do this, someone would have to do all the accounting that is required for a federal school lunch program. Happy to say that there may be a fee. We do this with other districts. Like we have a contract with Haldane where they take on things such as CPSE chairing, and there's paperwork involved in that, and we pay a fee for the overhead costs, additional time. So we are moving forward. They are very interested in supporting a federal school lunch program. We do not have a number yet. They're trying to figure out like what fees would be associated with us joining their program, knowing that we would have to give them additional reimbursable meals. So they're working on that, but I would say we are in a very positive place with that school district, and everybody is a willing partner, from the food service company to the school district officials, so it's looking like a real possibility at this point. Did you want me to mention the survey results too, or stop for any questions about that before we share any of the results?
Why don't we go through the results and then we'll do questions?
So I think, one of the things that we wanted to get a litmus of is what is the appetite in the community? Now that the landscape has changed, we're no longer partnering with Henry Hudson with, some more flexibility in a non-federal lunch program. It kind of changes some of the provisions. So we sent out a survey asking just a few questions, 4 questions to be precise. And I will say that, remember, if you're going to be a federal lunch program in New York now, every child eats at no cost to the parent, right? It doesn't mean it's no cost to the district, it means it's no cost to the parent. So that's number 1. So we asked the question, if we were to offer a free federal school lunch program following the nutritional guidelines, how likely would your children participate? And I will say that 94% of respondents were either somewhat likely or very likely. We asked how many children in your household attending the Garrison school would likely eat a school-provided lunch, and 55% of our respondents, there were 80 respondents in all, have more than one child in the household that would eat a school-provided lunch. The other question that we asked is, on average, how many days a week would your child or children eat the school-provided lunch? And 89% of the respondents said 3 or more days, meaning 5 days or 3 or 4. So there seems to be, out of the people that responded, a very high likelihood that at no cost families would participate in this program. I know there were comments, there's way too many to list here that I shared with the Board of Education, but they ranged of things just concerned about food quality, things we can't definitely answer. A lot of people, though, were very positive that they were happy that the board is considering this, and if they would offer, it would be a really great help to them.
I think a couple of things I noticed in the comments that I think are important to clear up as well for the community. I think the board is well aware that one of the reasons we don't cook in our own kitchen, aside from the overhead cost of running the program here, is also that the kitchen is not up to code and would need a really expensive renovation, which I don't think is something we can allocate resources for right now. So that's something to keep in mind, because I do know there was some comment on that. Also, the federal lunch program is not mandated. It is, if you choose to participate in a federal lunch program, it has to be free. But not every school district is mandated to participate. And we are only reimbursed, Greg, if I'm correct, for the cost of the food itself, not the per meal. That is purchased by a child, not for the staff to audit the program or the staff to serve it. So that's where the expenses that we're looking at. So that's where we're at. So I want to gauge everyone's interest in continuing to pursue this, so we understand we're moving forward. We also need to be aware of the July 31st deadline. We need to file with the state in some capacity all our paperwork that that we wish to participate by that date in order to become a federal lunch program under another district. So we kind of would be under their umbrella. If that makes sense. We have questions, thoughts we want to share? Okay, jump right in.
A couple of questions, like, for example, can we exit the program at any time should it be a failure? Mid-year?
Yes.
Done.
Yes.
Okay. Which staff would we be responsible as a district for paying, besides maybe our service staff? Are we also then paying for the time of the district not to be named?
Let me answer that in 2 parts.
Yeah.
Yes, and they're really good questions. With this, we are also exploring our ability to hire the food service company to provide the staff. When we were working with NHUD, they didn't have a food service company that does this, so that's a cost that we would bear out, and we have to pay for that. The second part of your question is, there is overhead associated with it, whether it's on the other districts, like internal staff doing some of the auditing, say in the business office, or whether this food service company requires additional fee to kind of handle our point of sale system, to handle our accounting for per meal, and as well as creating the portion sizes we need, or at least supervising us in delivering those portion sizes according to the macronutrients of the federal school. We just don't know what the.
And we have the potential to hire our own staff if we want, because we want to keep it in-house food service staff, or potentially work with a food service provider.
Our best bet as far as being able to guarantee lunch on an everyday basis, when we think about it and we get to what we think our staffing level is going to be, most likely we would have two employees doing this. And we think that if we're part of the food service management company, if one of the employees is sick, we have a more reliable way of always being able to deliver on school lunch. So if it's possible, and we did broach this with the food service management company and with the other district, this we think is the most successful way of doing it. We could hire our own employees, but then we don't really have a good plan for a substitute.
So the food, does it come directly to us, or would it be transported like we were talking about with them?
Yeah, so two parts to that. Some of the stuff that can be kept cold, prepackaged, can be delivered directly to us and we could store it. So think about like sliced apples or something like that. We could store those things for the week. They could deliver stuff like that directly. The hot prepared meals, we would go and we would grab, and then we would bring it down here and then portion them out. And again, that staff would have to be trained about how to portion out at different grade levels because of the different calorie counts that you have to abide by. So I would say some of the food we could go and get ourselves, like the daily meals that are being prepared, and some of the milks, the side fruit could be delivered directly to us according to the food service company.
And you talked about having to buy some equipment. Would that potentially change what we needed, or is it pretty much about the same?
We think it would be the same. We have a different set of eyes looking at it, and we are asking for their expertise in helping us pick the right stuff. But essentially, the main thought of the way this would be done is, as Greg was saying, prepared things that are already in servable condition, like milks and all those other sorts of things, would get delivered to us. We would pick up trays of hot food every day, and then kit it up as a big tray in insulated containers and bring them back to Garrison to be put in warming ovens that are part of the equipment plan, and then put in a servery as a part of the plan as well.
And cleaning, we also have plans for the dishwasher.
So that's still a question. So there's 2 schools of thought on that. A lot of districts use disposable flatware as well as disposable containers that the food is in, and that saves on labor costs. But when you want the compostable and the biodegradable stuff, there's a certain cost associated with that. So that cost benefit analysis still has to be done based on the equipment list we had in there for a tray washer type of deal. So it will depend on the numbers and what makes sense for staffing it.
So I guess it's hard to be not supportive of it in theory, but I've asked and there's no numbers, and that makes me uncomfortable. Are we talking the $85,000 we budgeted for kitchen upgrades? That's still coming. And then $69,000 is what we'd have for ongoing costs of staffing. Where do we think this is going to be? Is it south of that, north of that? Is in that range? It's hard to be like, yes, let's do it without knowing.
So I think that's a great question, a good point. I don't think we have those numbers yet, but we could, as a district, also go into this saying, all right, this is what we budgeted, this is what we planned for. Yes, going into a federal program is not part of our plan. So are we comfortable but we need to stay within those numbers, or are we comfortable going a little bit higher to try this, or hoping it comes in a little lower? So I think that's a question for tonight.
I mean, Ken, I wish we had numbers even after today's, but they have to do some number crunching and see what their overhead is. So I wish I could give you, and I think what has changed dramatically is now a part of, or potentially part of another district's federal school lunch program. And the other is now we're working with a food service company, management company, and they'll have to do an analysis, which Joe, I think they're gonna go back and do an analysis and see what costs it would incur on the district. But as Sarah said, you know, we did specify an amount for staffing, and we specified another amount for, you know, the upgrades that have to happen to the kitchen. It's really up to the board. If there's a range they're comfortable with, we will get that information as soon as we get it and share that with the board.
Is there a reason I mean, I know we have to do this because it's got to be July 31st, but I feel like we're rushing to make a decision where we don't really, like, you guys didn't really answer me at all. And so you really don't have any idea. So that leads me to be like, well, why are we could wait a year to do this. We have to. We
Wait,
really
can
don't.
we get numbers before July 31st?
If we don't have numbers by the reorg meeting, realistically, this can't happen because we can't order the equipment. It's gonna be a year out. But I also don't wanna, so we're asking a district to do a lot of work, just to even get us those numbers and to start pushing. And Joe and Craig have been pushing pretty hard to get more information. So I want to make sure our board has an idea of where we're going with it before we say, all right, start dedicating your staff, your time, your energy to helping us make this work. I think that's just.
Do we know when we're going to get these numbers?
The one thing I could add, and Joe and I will confirm this, but we believe you can still apply to be an RA and not serve the meal. So I'm not so sure that applying to be an RA means that you have to serve the meal, but we can confirm that. You know, if you don't serve the meal, you just don't get reimbursed. And you know, so even if we don't have hard numbers, I'm not so sure that applying to be an RA means that, you know, there are ways to kind of say it's not feasible, we can't do it.
If that's the case, then we should apply.
So, just to kind of talk a little bit more about what happened today versus where we were in the past is we had a very productive conversation with a food service consultant and the folks that are at the other school district to figure out how we get from where we are to a completed application and a program that works. I think what we have to recognize is, you know, the food service management company, it's a business. It is a business that has to have certain targets for profit. Otherwise, they wouldn't engage with a customer. So there is going to be some amount of funds that are related to that that Garrison will be responsible for, and we may have some funds that are related to making the school district side of the reimbursement work. But what I can say is it's the people that are involved, the food service consultant they have is a known entity that all school districts have used for years to work with the Office of Child Nutrition on food service companies and management of food service. And it was very, very productive. The way it would work is a point of sale system that would be here, would be tied into the other school, and all of the counting and everything would flow through that. A student would have a number or an account associated with them, and once they picked up a reimbursable meal, that was tracked and that would go to the other school to be able. So it is a workable system, but I think what is important is the capability of the person that's able to do the paperwork that's required for childhood nutrition couldn't be supported on our program, and we need that person to be part of another program in order for it to work. And this is we believe the most economical way of doing it is if you have a satellite school that's part of another school, that reimbursement and everything is filed through the other school, and it's part of the umbrella. Because the number of meals that we serve here and the capability of a person that's required that you need in order to be able to do that, it doesn't fit in the overhead number. So in order for us to get an overhead number that's the best we're going to be able to get, we have to do it this way. And if we want to do a federal program, and I would say that all of the school districts that are possible as far as geography, they're all in federal programs now. And they're going to be incomplete in federal programs now because of what's happened with the budget. So this is kind of the only game in town with the restrictions that we have.
I understand. I mean, I guess I'm not comfortable with saying I'm in when we can say, well, it's an extra $200,000, but everybody's getting free food. I want to see the number before I say I'm in, and ranges are tough.
I think I would struggle with there's a big price tag on top of it. I think I would struggle with that too. I do think because it's reimbursed, I do have a question for you, Joe, on the reimbursement. Are they, did you, from your conversation today, did you get a sense that they're expecting us to outlay any funds other than the administrative costs? Or are they just simply collecting the reimbursement on food? We don't need to pay in advance for the food, then they'll collect the reimbursement and funnel it back?
What we think, based upon the conversation, is the district would process the reimbursement, and it would be part of the umbrella and all be within one entity. Because if there is side agreements outside of that, they didn't think that would work through childhood nutrition.
Okay.
So it would all be part of a one contract.
So essentially, the costs we're looking at then are the administrative fee to run it and do the accounting. But it does, because we were going to charge, and that what we're thinking the district would swallow, I think we agreed on a maximum of, the board was comfortable of a $7 charge. And now we will only be reimbursed at $5.50 per meal, $4.50, excuse me, less than that. And then, but they can't charge us any more for that meal, they can charge administrative costs.
What I can,
basically.
yeah, what I
Those
can,
are the types of fees we're looking at now, so we're transitioning, but we're not recouping, so the district would be paying, the profit margin number needed to the food service company, and the number for the staffing as well, in both the accounting side and the serving side, so there is a increase there.
well, I can't say what the number is gonna be. What I can say is currently at the district, all of the food service management company, all they get is the reimbursement amount, and they're able to make money on
Okay.
that. So
Are there a la carte items also available, or like if students want an extra half meal, they pay for it?
I imagine that would be, but that we haven't discussed that yet.
Okay, and we're gonna move forward with the kitchen renovation regardless.
Well, the kid,
I wouldn't call it a renovation.
yeah, I mean, the kitchen purchase.
Equipment.
I don't think we need the equipment if we're not running a program, so that money would just.
You wouldn't want to make some improvements to what's there to then better support.
It's very tricky because the stuff we are purchasing, in my understanding, is specifically for this type of service, and if we're not doing that, it's kind of useless. And if we do a deeper renovation, there is asbestos in that kitchen, and it's a much more expensive renovation. It's not a simple thing.
I mean, my feeling, and Kent makes some good points, but I think we have to keep moving forward. We can't just wait until we get these numbers to take any action. I think we should take as much action as we can. I know, with all due respect to the other district, we don't want to waste their time, but it seems like even if we get far enough down the road and say, well, we can't do it this year, we're set up well for the next year, then maybe if they're willing to.
And I'm happy to apply for it. I guess I'm just like, I'm not ready to say I'm in no matter what.
Yeah.
No, of course not. If it costs $1 million, we're not.
Ultimately, the decisions or the what we're trying to get a sense of tonight is just whether or not we would want to proceed with it if, so that the financials align, right?
If the financials were, I mean, part of it, I was looking at that survey results and it does seem like there's a strong interest. And I just wanted, I think there is an education to the community from reading the comments that this is the federal lunch program. It is the meals they are preparing. We're not having them cook anything special. It's not coming from a local farmer. It is not going to meet everyone's desires and needs. It is a school lunch program, like every other district around us. So that was one thing that gave me pause in reading some of the comments, is I don't think this is going to meet the expectations of some of those. At the same time, this is the food that is served in all the schools around here that other kids eat and are very happy with. So I want to be mindful of that when having that discussion.
All of the high schools that our kids go to.
But there's no downside risk in terms of like, if we can step out of the program, yes, we've spent the money on the equipment, right? So there's that downside risk, that's not huge, and probably that equipment would probably be used for other things. So I don't see a huge downside risk for trying it.
And if everybody stops buying the meals, then we can potentially reevaluate mid-year, right?
Do you think this would require a change in the master schedule at all?
At that time, no, very.
No, so the only downside, I mean, I downside economically, of course, but the only other downside is the elimination of pizza lunch, which I know it's kind of feels like an afterthought a little bit, but having kids, several 8th graders now, is a vital fundraiser for that class. So I do think.
How much they raise?
It's about 16,000, but they do other, I was unclear on that number, whether that all came from pizza lunch. I think
Well,
they do.
it's not all
other
for pizza lunch, I think it's more than half. 11 for pizza
11,
lunch.
okay.
Well, a vast majority of them.
Yeah.
So is it 8th grade parent next year?
Jocelyn.
Yeah.
I'll take on the extra fundraising with my fellow 8th grade parents.
Well, I think I admire you for doing that. But I will point out, last year, we had 2 trips, so we had to do extra fundraising. And it generally just falls on the parents in the 8th grade to pay more for.
But that is what other districts are doing. My understanding is the parents just pay for the trip and it's not a fundraise thing. That is the norm in other districts. And they said it, or the students come up with ideas for how to fundraise. I struggle with, I see the point. I think it is a wonderful tradition, but I struggle with the idea of not serving lunch to the entire school community for free if we have the ability in order to get pizza.
No, I'm not advocating we
Yeah.
eliminate school lunch to keep pizza lunch, but what I'm saying is I don't want everybody in the school to say, well, too bad, you've got to figure it out. I'm hoping that the school can be supportive of the 8th grade next year to help find creative ways to continue a fundraising tradition. Maybe it's not selling food at lunch, but maybe something else that they can begin that raises up money for them, that continues that tradition. It's not just the money raising, it's there are a lot of things that they do there.
Right, I think that's the learning experience, right? Can you design something that's gonna raise money? I think it pushes students to think creatively. I mean, I haven't had an 8th grader yet. I have one someday, but
He'll make it.
we'll see.
I know, Chris.
No, but I mean, it's sort of like a civic engagement thing too, right? I mean, these are really great skills to learn, sales skills, community service type thing. So I think it could be kind of built into the curriculum, kind of interesting way, kind of creatively. It's harder than just stepping into something that's already set up, that's for sure. But maybe it's better.
It's definitely new. If we go with this type of lunch program, can any add-ons be sold in the cafeteria at all?
You cannot compete with.
No compete,
Yeah.
only during lunch hours or?
There's certain hours in the day you
Right,
can't
so you
compete.
can compete other hours.
After school, things like that.
What about
perhaps.
breakfast hours?
We'd have to look into that because there's exemptions for
I'm
it,
sure,
but if you are again, we've learned so much about that school. I can't tell you how many webinars I've done. You really can't sleep at night. Just watch their free webinars. There are exemptions depending on the type of school we become. We don't know exactly if this district is a SEP district and we become part of a SEP or not a SEP. There's exemptions for breakfast. If we start selling a breakfast, we have to look into the legality of that because breakfast is and can be part of a federal lunch program. So we have to look into that. But after school, things of that nature, and the one thing I will say, regardless if the board does decide to move forward with this, the school will absolutely help the eighth graders in finding creative ways to, fundraise and support all of the activities and wonderful activities. We don't want to take away anything from our eighth graders, and the school is in full support of helping in any way that we can with that.
Maybe the PTA could become more involved with that too. It might be a really nice way to keep the PTA connected to the middle school.
Also, the biodigester will become very relevant if we have a school lunch program.
Especially in compostables.
Yeah, I mean,
Can Seymour eat compostable plate trays?
oh, anything, right?
There's a very specific diet it has to have, so it's important that we follow that. I think you couldn't overload it with a whole bunch of compostable material, so.
Our fifth graders are the experts, just so everybody knows, Seymour is now, our biodigester is now part of our curriculum. And fifth graders are finding creative ways to feed it in a way. And so this could be, again, a learning experience for them. They're already working on creative ways to feed it a steady diet of at least 25 pounds a day. Wow. Yes, that's what it.
That's great.
You knew it was so hungry.
If you have compost, you should come here, or food scraps over the summer and just.
I'd be happy to do that. I'd rather feed Seymour than the local bear.
Yeah, exactly. So what I'm hearing, just because we have other discussions this evening, is that we would like Greg and Joe to continue pursuing it with this district with the idea that we will hopefully have solid numbers by our July meeting. And if that's not looking like it's the case, we can have we can sort of check in and see how close are we to, if not solid numbers, a range of like, is this too expensive to continue pursuing? Just an idea on that level of like, is this going to become such an expense in the administrative side that it's going to be problematic for a budget that has already been voted on in the past?
We will get by that an off-ramp by July 9th, confirmation of whether if we apply for it, at any point can we remove ourselves from it without any sort of penalty or any sort of obligation. So that we can definitely get by the July 9th meeting.
Is that a question for the state of like, if we're in this and we suddenly are like, nope, we're done with federal lunch?
I think it's a two-part question. I think it's one with our partners. If they do all this work and the numbers don't make sense, can we put, second is we put an application with Child Nutrition Office of NICEAD. Are there any ramifications of action on it? And so we can get confirmation from them for that by July 9th, so that at least, there's an off-ramp. If the numbers come back later and they're just astronomical, we can say no harm, no foul, not doing it.
Yeah. Does that sound comfortable to everyone for right now? All right. Getting a little bit closer. Thank you for learning everything there is to know about a federal lunch program. All right, that brings us to our next, again, this, our SPO discussion is also a follow-up discussion for this evening. So we put this on here to just basically give the board and then the community an update as to where we are since this was approved in the budget. So Greg, can I turn it over to you for a brief update as to where we are, and then we'll do questions and other follow-up.
Sure. This is going to be relatively brief because I think we only took a half step. We're not nowhere to the point where this thing is a go. We have met with the undersheriff and the captain. We've talked about some of the concerns that we have with some of the contracts they have with other districts and let them know what those things were. We told them the way the current contract is, we're not going to accept that, our community won't accept that, our board won't accept it, I won't accept it. We talked about some of the things about securing PII, student and staff PII. We talked about our ability to remove somebody. We talked about our ability to train them in some of our SEL programs and the way we deal with neurodiverse students. We talked about us having every single right to approve who they send here that were part of the process, and ultimately we're the ones that decide who comes and works with us. They weren't at all, they said, all right, make some red line suggestions on those things. We have made some of those suggestions. We are having our attorneys review it. Once I get it back from the attorneys, I will have, the redlined copies to the board to review and for discussion about whether or not you want us to move forward by sending that contract, that redlined contract to the sheriff's office for their teams to go. So we're just at the, looking at the contract right now and making sure that we have protective language in there for our community, our students, and our staff.
So I've asked Greg to share his red line with the board, and that'll go out in the weekly on Friday. But we do have a long way to go on that, I would say. The other questions that have been raised regarding the SPO is the evaluation. I'm going to call it a climate evaluation, but I'm not sure that's the right term. So where we are now, where we're going, and if we want to hire a consultant to do that work, I think it's sort of two phrases. What is determining the scope of the work, and then figuring out sort of how we do that. My question for the board is, in my opinion, I feel like we're not there yet. I'd like to make sure we get this MOU nailed down first, because that is really the most important part for this board to proceed in, from what I've heard from the community and from board members. So before we go and look at bringing in consultants to do work, we kind of want to make sure we have that in place. And that will be a jumping off point as well for any consultant to understand what we're looking for. But I wanted to get everyone's thoughts, because I know we had some. I also want to just read, the MOU really does need to be, in my opinion, a document that is negotiated between our administration and the sheriff. It is not something that is open to a debate. It'll then be put to review for the board. But beyond that, I don't think we need to. I'm not in favor of bringing in other outside voices into this process at that point, because that really does lie with us approving this contract once we're happy with it. We, of course, welcome community input in that process through our meetings and whatnot, but I think it really needs to rest here as a contract. And there's already a lot of cooks in the kitchen on this contract. So that's where we're at. Anyone wants to share their thoughts and on these next steps and when we should start moving forward, of course.
I mean, look, I'm pleased to hear that it's not, great taking the document and just rubber stamping it, So I really do appreciate the seriousness with which it's being taken. Especially as far as neurodivergent students go and other kids who are at risk. I don't disagree that it should be kept with the board, but I think there are parents who have of neurodivergent children and other kids at risk who have raised their concerns, and I feel as if it's not enough for us to say, we hear you, we're addressing it, and then asking them to just trust us that we've got it, right? I think it's, while I agree we can't just open the document for everybody to, mark up, at the same time, we know who some of those parents are. We know they've come to us. And I think it's okay to meet with some of them on a private basis if you have time and inclination, hear their thoughts, and make sure those specific things that they are worried about are addressed. And if we need to show them language to give them that comfort, I think that's okay. Now, not asking them to redline it or whatever, but they have expressed a desire to be involved in the process. And I think it would be wise of us to continue engaging with those families who have expressed very serious concerns, not just saying, don't worry, we hear you, we got it. Hey, what are you concerned about? Here's the language to address it. Does this make sense to you? Do you feel okay with it? But not sharing, say, the whole document.
So I'd like to respectfully disagree with you. I think listening to the parents and talking to them and maybe having them in for another meeting is one thing. But sharing the language of the contract goes just a little too far. We are entrusting our administration to follow up on the charge of the board, which is to make sure that those concerns are addressed in the contract. And the contract does then become public. But I think that it's a slippery slope to say, in this case, you can see this part of this contract. At what point do people come in and say, well, now we want to see part of the teacher's contracts, and we want to weigh in on this contract? So I think, I clearly heard the concerns of a bunch of people on a bunch of issues, not only the no divergent issue, and I think it's beholden of this board to make sure that those are addressed in the contract. I wouldn't want to have people who express concerns welcome to a meeting to then look at specific.
I hear what you're saying at the same time, and I get it, it's a slippery slope, but we're talking about an armed person in the school, period. And that's what these people are concerned about. Now, I'm not saying that we show them the full contract. I'm saying we need to be open to discussion with them about their specific concerns and say, okay, here's how your concern is being met in this contract. Not showing them the whole contract. We are not talking about nachos versus pizza. We are talking about armed personnel in a school and kids at risk. And those parents have every right to have their voice heard and not just say, not be met with a response of, don't worry, we got it.
I hear both of those sides of the point. I agree with, the position that opening up the MOU for sort of community revision is not a good idea, not a good precedent. I also totally agree we should be soliciting and solicitous of feedback that we receive from folks. I think we have done that throughout the year, I think. The task force was a pretty, I think, as far as board, efforts go, a pretty substantial attempt. Not everybody's going to be happy, of course, not everybody was happy, but it was a pretty substantial and good faith attempt to collect as much feedback as possible. And the red lines that Greg has submitted to the sheriff's office directly reflect the sort of bulleted list that came out of our second task force meeting. And we are making a very concerted effort to address those concerns. And then, of course, these meetings are an opportunity and, a request, an opening for the community to come and share their feedback with us about those concerns and to have an opportunity to hear what we were saying about the contract, where it is in the status, which is what we're doing right now, and to have them either participate in public comment at this meeting or in future meetings, and then, of course, to be able to see the public version of the contract when it is offered. I would implore members of the community who are concerned about this to come to the public opportunities to speak about this so that we can hear those concerns. And then, if they feel like, based on the tenor of these conversations at the meetings, we are not meeting those concerns, we're not addressing them, then, to let us know about that. Because I do think we are, as evidenced by the red lines you submitted, making a real effort to do that. And then, of course, they can continue to reach out directly to us by email, through our board email addresses. And, maybe it's, getting to sort of the question of the climate survey. I certainly think there's a role for us to be collecting data on both before this starts and over the course of that. And so we should be thinking about, what does that mean? What does that look like? What is the board as a whole willing or not willing to spend, on anything to that end? And if we're not willing to spend something, what would it look like without an expenditure? So, I don't think we should approach it as just like we're opening the MOU for revision or we're not listening to feedback. It's, we're asking for feedback. We're being open about this process. We're trying to match the concerns that were expressed in the task force, and we should continue to do it in this forum.
I also think we need to recognize that not everyone in the community is going to agree on this, not everyone on the board is going to agree on this. And we're not going to make everybody happy with this. And my other concern with opening up these specific parents is you're always going to be excluding someone else. We have a very, we heard from certain ones who were engaged, but there are others as well.
Do you feel, especially Greg, who's been redlining, and probably both of you that given all the task force meetings and all the community meetings we've had and, board discussions, that you've been able to incorporate all of the concerns? And does the rest of the board feel like, yeah, they probably have incorporated it all? And so, because I think that's your concern, but also mine, is like, are you sure you got every single one?
But
This is right.
but there's a process, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we're gonna get to see on Friday, I guess.
Right.
And then we're gonna get to see the final, I think we'll probably see every draft maybe.
Yeah.
as we
So
go.
that's what I'm saying, is I think it's
So
the board's
it's on our,
goal to.
it's on our shoulders to make sure that,
I also think I want to be clear, from what I've read, I think we have a ways to go in this conversation, and I think while tonight is an update, it's not going to be a fast process. The sheriff's office has other things to do, we have other things to do, but there is a back and forth that's going to take place. It involves our legal counsel, I'm sure it involves their legal counsel. So I just want to manage the board's expectations as well, that this may take a while to hammer out. And I don't expect them, and Greg, you've met with them, to come back immediately and be like, we love your plan, because it is extensively changing.
And I do want to answer your question too, Justin. I took very seriously all the feedback we got. I think I captured it, right? However, I want to make sure that we actually do capture those. So, as I said, you'll get it on Friday. Actually, your attorneys have reviewed it. I just got it back out of the press. The board will get to see all of the red lines, the original, the red lines. I hope to have captured it. I took that very seriously, and I'm not comfortable with anything that doesn't protect all the things that people are concerned about. And then I think, the board can take a look at it, and if there's more outreach we need to do, if there's additional revisions that you hear from people that share concerns with you as the elected officials, then please bring those back to the board, to me, and we'll make those additional additions to it based on what, you have spoken to a lot more people than maybe I have a task force meeting, and if there's things that do not satisfy the board or the people that you represent, then I think this can be ongoing until we get it right. And as Sarah said, Putnam County Sheriff's Office may say we're not good with it.
I just
That's okay
want
too.
to also emphasize, particularly for task force members who are wondering sort of what's been happening. It's been, I don't know, we probably had our second task force meeting in late April or early May, I can't actually remember. But we didn't begin these conversations until the budget passed, which was late May. And then Greg has been diligently following up with the sheriff's office to try and get some progress, but you have to have a partner in that. And so the beginning of this red line process has really only just begun. So there hasn't been like a lot of work that's been going on in the background without us sharing that. We went through the budget, then we tried to start engaging with the sheriff's office, and now that process is finally sort of kicked off.
Yeah, I think that's good to hear. I think as long as we're moving slow and not fast, that's great. And as long as there's a 1-to-1 ratio, this is the concern that was raised, here's how it's addressed in the contract. As long as I personally, and I think other members of the board can see that and can speak confidently to those members of the community who are concerned, that's way, way better. So
It's going to be a process. I want to get to the second question though, too, if we are going to do a climate survey for last.
Let's just call it a program evaluation.
Program
Climate
evaluation.
survey sounds mushy.
Okay.
No, seriously, if you're gonna do, I think what we asked for was something formal, valid, reliable, which means you need pre-test and post-test, which means you need something before anything comes in the building.
So my question though on that is, if it involves, I think to move forward with that, what I would ask is if you have ideas, and I've been given a couple from one task force member of companies that do this work that we could start getting a sense of what it costs and their timeline and what it needs, that would be useful. Because my big question when I'm thinking of this is, well, if it's a climate survey, don't we need people, from the building here, and they're going to be gone soon.
That's what I would be worried about.
So that's my first question is, what do they need to make this process work? Which I think might be teachers and students.
Yeah, I mean, sounds like we're moving pretty slow, which I think is good. So, I mean, this could be something that would happen next year, next school year. We don't have to start this on.
No, but we should
August
start
31st.
the planning for it. So my follow-up then would be for the program evaluation, thank you. Send your different companies in, let's get a list, let's look at what these cost, what they need, what their steps are. I mean, I reached out to one this week and I was asked a ton of questions I can't answer. I'm like, well, what about this? When do you need it? What's the deadline? I have this project. Let's start there, and then we can revisit this as a board, once we have some ideas of what we're talking about and what these companies need from us.
I think, about that MOU, but the MOU is a big veto point. That's the biggest thing here. I don't think, it sounds like even from Greg's perspective, that we're nowhere close to having something acceptable. So, I don't think we need to rush to even do any sort of research at this point. And unless people want to spend their time doing that, but I just think we should get that MOU at least close, where we feel like, okay, we all feel comfortable this is probably gonna happen. Something doesn't sound like we're there yet. So
Don't you think though that data needs to be collected before there's an ARP officer in the building?
Yes, but we can't do anything unless.
But we move so, I'll just remind you all, I know you all.
We're gonna have an ARP officer on September 2nd.
Right, so we need to collect that, look at the price. We have 2 meetings over the summer plus a retreat, so we need to just be mindful of how slow our process is too.
Right, I'm just to hear what you said before.
Well, no, I'm just saying, I can't imagine we're gonna have this MOU worked out by the start of the next school year. Sounds like it's moving very slow and we're really far apart at the moment.
I think we've just begun.
Right, but like you said, how many meetings do we have? I think it sounds really challenging to me, but I don't think we should rush to spend time or especially money.
I think though we want to get it set up for the start of the school year.
People want it by September.
Well, I think also if we want to get the program evaluation set up by the beginning of the school year, we kind of do need to start now knowing who we're going to work with. Because I think these places also book up and they need to know what we're doing. So.
Yeah, I would say whether it's September, whether it's October, doing our due diligence about what kind of evaluation system we want to set up, what third party is going to do it, what metrics do they use, what kind of reporting do you report out, how do they work with the community and the board, and what is the expenditure that the board has to authorize to do that. We did a little research at the beginning because people were asking in the task force about how do you evaluate the program. We went out there and we just, some cold calls that we made to some groups that I won't name. And so that does take time. They ask a ton of questions and I'm like, so I think you want to be prepared so that whenever, if all the stars align and the contract is agreeable to the sheriff's office and agreeable to the Board of Education, you really want to be able to say, okay, let's not delay because we didn't have an evaluation system set up. That's already set up, ready to go.
Is there money for it in our budget?
Not allocate. We didn't plan for that.
We didn't plan.
We talked about planning.
We
for
talked
it
about
last month.
Yeah.
And you were like, yes, you can just move that 10K.
Well, we can, so the budget is always an estimate.
Right.
And that's based upon the best information that we have at the time. We have the capability of moving things around in the budget, and there is contingency money in the budget. But as far as an official plan, or was it a line item? No.
Right.
But can we?
Yeah.
But I think we have to be mindful of how much we're moving, so we should start looking at what the different groups. Because there's a lot of options out there for how we do this, and you can go very expensive, you don't have to. It's my view, there's a lot of others.
Yeah, it's not clear to me, and I'm not weighing one way or the other, but whether we need to, do we need to hire a third party to do this? Is it something that we could handle through parent volunteers, PTA? Is it, this is obviously different than a lunch survey, but we have put out a bunch of surveys this year.
Yeah.
Would that be sufficient? That's just a question I don't know the answer to. If we worked with folks who had some idea of this, and and it would help us draft the questions,
The
would we be able to do
The
that?
National Center on Safe Supportive Learning Environments has a vetted survey that you can take and, that might be a place for people to start. Or you might just want to use that survey.
Yeah, I would rather we use something that's vetted
National
rather
vetted
than
survey.
free
Can you
will.
send that out?
I'll send that with
Thank you.
Thanks.
So that would be something to start with too. We are getting responses to ours. Or tell them no. We just want something free. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So that's where we're at. I'm gonna wrap up this discussion and move on to the presentation, unless there's any other comments or questions. Presentation of the 24-25 counseling plan. Greg, this is all you.
Thank you. This is really a continuation of the presentation we gave in May. Our counseling plan, every school district, every year has to establish a counseling plan. You can find this counseling plan on our website under Student Services under the Counseling tab. And we talked, part of the the school counseling plan is all the things we talked about. What is your SEL programs? We talked about our SEL programs. We talked about Yale Ruler. We talked about crisis intervention, student supports, our dialectical behavioral therapy. That's all encompassed in the plan. But there's much more that a school counseling plan does. And if Krista was here, she would co-present this with me, but she is at home on maternity. And when she comes back, I'm sure next time around, she'll present this with me. And she does a remarkable work. She's a department of one. And really some of the things that are also included in this plan are academic advisement for 3 different high schools that kids can go to, as well as college and career readiness plan. And she does that stuff early about career explorations, even as early in elementary schools. She does a lot of supporting of our transition. We have students that transition into preschool, out into kindergarten. Our 5th to 6th grade transition, or 8th to 9th grade transition. All of those programs and systems, the counseling department, with help of everybody else, really supports. There's a lot of homeschool communication that Krista does. She has her counseling corner that some parents may remember, but she also does a lot of community building. She creates programs where kids get together, our dances, she really supports a lot of our school spirit work. And so all of that goes into the counseling and climate program. She also does a lot of crisis and abuse prevention with some programs that she provides directly to teach students about abuse and preventing violence, crisis, and who they can go to. She also supports and guides in the high school selection process. She's in communication with all of the high school counselors, their teams, and even when students, which people may not know, when students make that selection, they may be really struggling with that, and she counsels families and counsels students on making a selection at the time that's right for them. And she does a lot of conflict management. She has lunch bunches, where all kids, part of adolescence, growing up, they get to conflict where they don't agree about something. And here more so, we're like a family. They're together in very small quarters for a very long time. And she does a lot of work on making sure that, like any family, there's peace to be had and that there's resolution to conflicts that happen. So the board and the community can take a look at that. Again, available in our board agenda, but also if you go on our school site, under school, under student services, and under counseling, the whole plan is laid out for the community and the board. So this is one of those things that we're happy to report. We have to report every year on. We'll report next year. I'll have a better presenter with me next time that can really speak to this with more clarity. But I will tell you, you have one of the greatest school counselors that I've ever worked with, and Krista, and she's much more than a school counselor. She does a lot for this school, and I can never encompass everything she does in this plan, but we're incredibly lucky and fortunate to have her as our school counselor.
Any questions for Greg? Thank you. We go ahead and move to public comment. Public comment is intended for members of the community to speak openly and voice concerns in accordance with policy 1510 of the Garrison Union Free School District. Any person wishing to speak shall comply with all provisions of this policy. Comments about specific school personnel or individual students is a violation of board policy. Concerns regarding students or personnel should be discussed privately with the superintendent or appropriate administrator. Comments should be limited to 3 minutes, and speakers are asked to conduct themselves in a respectful manner. The board will listen to comments but will not engage in dialogue. Any necessary follow-up will be noted and provided through the appropriate channel. Members of the public wishing to comment during board meetings are asked to place their name and town of residence on the sign-in sheet. Commenters will be invited to the podium to address the board. First, I would like to invite Riley Schott from Garrison.
Hi, my name is Riley Shaw, and I'm a rising sophomore at Putnam Valley High School. I graduated last year from the Garrison School where I was president. I'm here tonight with my brother Hudson, who is the current president of the Garrison School and is graduating next week. Us and other students came here tonight about the potential impacts of ending pizza lunch, both in terms of fundraising and community at the school. The free lunch program sounds like an amazing opportunity, but there are real downsides that need to be addressed. According to the school's email yesterday, the pizza lunch program will no longer be permitted under federal guidelines if the school was to go through with the program. I want to bring up student perspective so that it is not lost in the conversations tonight. First, I'm going to discuss 8th grade fundraising. Last year, pizza lunch brought in $8,000. Every year, it is by far the largest fundraiser, and it makes up over half of what the grade needs to fundraise. We typically fundraise an additional $6,000, which is made up of many smaller fundraisers. These include car washes, movie nights, holiday wreaths, fall festival, family photo sessions, and student feature basketball game. And there's more too. All of these many events combined don't make what pizza lunch does. It is important for those of you who haven't had 8th graders to understand the scale of fundraising that would need to replace pizza lunch and the burden it would place on 8th grade families. We fundraise for a reason, because there are so many significant traditions that 8th graders look forward to that are possible for everyone to participate in, because fundraising makes it free for all 8th grade students. Some examples of this are the 8th grade graduation dance, the 8th grade graduation ceremony, and most importantly, the overnight trip at Rocking Horse Night. Speaking of the importance of community and traditions, pizza lunch is one of the most special Garrison traditions of all. Starting in kindergarten, kids look forward to serving pizza lunch. 8th graders get to connect with students from pre-K through middle school. They clean up the cafeteria, help prepare meals, and serve salads, pizza, and drinks. Families come and serve alongside the 8th grade students, which is a bonding experience. It is one of the few ways parents are at the school. Pizza Fridays are something to look forward to every week, and they connect the whole school because everyone is involved in some way. I came here tonight to share the perspective of someone who has recently been through 8th grade fundraising and pizza lunch. I wanted to make sure this perspective isn't forgotten, especially since the survey that was sent out about the lunch program was not applicable to those without kids in the school, only those with younger children who may not understand the implications for the 8th grade. As this moves forward, I ask you to think about the potential for massive financial and time burdens on 8th grade families, or the alternative, experiences that could be cut that families and students are expecting to participate in. The lunch program could be a great benefit, but if it moves forward, it is very important to prioritize coming up with a creative solution that will help support 8th grade experiences. Thank you.
Thank you, Riley, for sharing your thoughts. Next, I have Tyler Zeri.
Thank you to the board for all the great conversation that has happened around the decision. As a parent of 2 children in school in the district, who are both neurodivergent, I do very much appreciate the level of discussion and care that's gone into it. With regards to the MOU and the redlining, as a parent, you are our representatives. I trust the superintendent, I trust the board to understand these concerns that have been raised and to make sure that everything that's possible is done to take care of our children. But beyond that, if there's an opportunity to be involved in helping with the program evaluation, I do professional research, that's my job. So if it's possible to be part of that process. I would love to be involved. I know there's some discussion about doing a survey internally. Having a third party do that survey, I think would actually help allay concerns by some of the community who are concerned about how politicized this might be, that having an outsider, an outside third party who is reliable and trusted to do that kind of research really does matter in situations like this, as opposed to just like having a survey that's sent out by the superintendent or by the board or by the PTA. So just another thing to consider as you work through it. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we can collaborate. Public comment remains open. If anyone else wishes to speak, you're welcome to come forward and sign up. We don't usually have people, so it's exciting. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment then. Move on. There will be another opportunity for public comment later in the meeting. This brings me to our policy readings. We have a first reading of policy 7316, use of internet-enabled devices during the school day. This is just a first reading tonight. We're going to be voting on it. I'm going to go ahead. Jen, do you want to speak a little bit about it?
So this is a required policy that we have in place by August 1st. We talked about knowing that this was going to happen at the last board meeting and understanding that we are putting together what we think is the best policy at this time. I'm not knowing exactly how it's going to translate, and that we might need to be open to the fact of modifying the policy in the future. I want to thank Dr. Stoll for doing a really nice job of pulling together some information and getting sources. I don't know if you want to speak to it. The policy basically follows what the law says, which is that students are not allowed to have internet-enabled devices unless they're issued by the school during the school day, and that there are a bunch of exceptions as to why you can have them. And then if you do come to, and those exceptions include for medical reasons, for translation, for learning reasons, if you have an accommodation to use a device for a specific purpose. And if you do come to school with a device that you're not supposed to have with you, that the school will provide opportunities for you to store that in a variety of locations or a to-be-determined location. But that the school does not have liability for if something happens.
No, I think Jen, you did a great job. This just, codifies the law that was sent down through the budget process in New York State. And the law does say we have to have a policy by August 1st. It will require us to make some adjustments to our code of conduct, which we will bring to the community. And the last piece is it does require us to send data up to New York State Education Department by September, I think it's 2026, on the infractions in terms of kids following this policy. It does require us to engage with our stakeholders. We did do a survey I shared with the community and the board. We surveyed our students, we surveyed our teachers. I also met with the GTA very recently to talk about this new ban. We had a community forum for it, so we did try to engage with our stakeholders, which was another provision.
I have one question on the policy. It states that one of the reasons you could use like an internet connected device is the teacher instructs you or allows you to. But that sort of suggests that you then have that device on you in the first place in order for the teacher to do that. So, and if they're not allowed to use it between classes, we kind of don't want them to have it on them, right?
I think that provision cut out was for districts that are maybe not one-to-one. And I think that they realized that not every kid has a device, because a district issued device. So I think that cutout was purposeful, because if the teacher says, look, we're all going to do this, and it's a BYOD, bring your own device district, and they don't have the resources to provide one. I think that was the cutout for that.
So that's part of the recommended policies to have that in there. That's what I really want, because I just don't want to create more trouble for our teachers, especially during class changes when
I could also see if you are a student who is using a device for a medical reason, and then the teacher says, we're gonna use your device for this, maybe you could use a device you already have on you, and not necessarily have to turn to the district issue. So it leaves a little flexibility in that.
I could also see situations in which, maybe not at this school, but maybe like creating a podcast, you're creating a video, like you're using a device to do that.
It might not be the phone.
Yeah.
Right.
Or you're bringing a device in to do something special.
You may be on a class trip and they want you to bring a device to take photos of it. You know, we go to the Garrison Art Center and the art teacher, we want you to take photos of something that you're creating when you're back there and there's no internet connectivity for a Chromebook. So those could be the carve-outs too, that, that the teacher allows teachers to kind of have that flexibility.
And one other, did you have any questions from the GTA on it? Were there any concerns for implementation? Because my concern is, and goes, I think, a little bit beyond our policy, but are we doing enough to make sure that we're not really putting a huge burden on the teachers?
We did discuss, and I think for us, you know, we're not a high school, so I think those challenges are different and distinct. We did discuss that the smartwatches are probably our biggest concern because a lot of them are internet connected, either cellular or still can be connected to the phone that's stored in a locker or a cubby. And how we're going to manage students, you know, possibly using their internet connected smart device. And then also, what does it mean for a kid that may have an internet connected Fitbit? Just tracking their steps. By regulation, it is internet connected. So I think those are the things we're gonna have to address as we go through, make some adjustments and work as a team. And that enforcement is not just the administrators, enforcement is also education by the teachers, coaching by the teachers, and also our job to, you know, remind the parents that, like, if a kid doesn't need an internet connected smartwatch, probably a good idea to not bring it into school. If your kid has to have a phone, then make sure that, you know, it's stored away and that there's no confusion about it. Because in our district, we do have, we are one district, every kid can have an internet connected district device.
Sorry, just one, I'm really glad you raised that about smartwatches because while they can be great for steps and lots of other things, I just want to put this out there. A friend in another district, not anywhere near here, but a smartwatch was basically the primary device for cyberbullying in their school. And so I think it's something that we really need to be mindful of because in a school where in that district, can't have a phone on you, but if you can have a watch, you can get away with a lot. So, so I think we need to keep that in mind.
Does this, do we feel good about the policy? Do we have any other questions on the policy? I know we're gonna probably revisit this again as another reading of the policy when we approve it, and also this will be a topic we discuss during code of conduct. So. And we can always hold another community forum if anybody really wants. Right, I'm gonna keep us moving on then. The next one is a first reading of policy 3421, Title IX, sex discrimination.
So this is a modification of a policy that was adopted by the board in 2022. It names our two Title IX, and this is a coordinating officers, which will be our director of innovation and our building principal, which allows us to have, so, you know, Title IX is to avoid discrimination and to make sure that you're having an environment that if people have concerns and people can talk to. And so, at the policy committee, we talked about having one male and one female person for people with kids to go to. And so it just cleans up a little, there's a little wordsmithing. It sets 10 days for investigation, 10 school days for investigation. And those are the major changes that we just laid out.
Do you have any questions or thoughts on this one? We'll try to move to the next one, first reading of policy 5685, max temp for buildings and facilities.
So this is a new policy, just in time for the heat wave. Luckily, we don't worry about that yet. So this sets that at 84 degrees, if the classroom reaches 84 degrees, certain steps are taken, and then if it reaches 88 degrees, additional measures are taken, including that the superintendent does have the ability to close school or height again if the temperature exceeds 88 degrees in the classroom. This is a requirement.
Any questions or thoughts on the max temperature policy? Okay. Thank you, Jim. And again, thank you, Policy Committee. We will revisit these for a second reading at another meeting. Brings me to acceptance of minutes. Be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District does hereby accept the minutes of the regular workshop meeting of June 4th, 2025 as presented. May I have a motion, please?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays, abstentions. That brings me to finance reports. Be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District does hereby accept the Treasurer's Report for May 2025 and the Claims Audit Report for May 2025 as presented. May I have a motion, please? Do you have any questions or thoughts on the reports as presented? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays, abstentions. Brings me to CSE, CPSE recommendations. Be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District approve the Committee on Special Education, CSE, and the Committee on Preschool Special Education, CPSE recommendations and student placement. May I have a motion, please?
Second.
Second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays, abstentions. That brings us to the consent agenda. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, does hereby approve the items of the personnel consent agenda as presented. May I have a motion, please? Thank you. And Greg, I believe there's one you wish to speak to?
Yeah, I just want to alert the board that I'm recommending that Kathy Clark continue as a grade advisor and everybody's returning, which is great. Krista Diego, Chrissy Palmano as student government co-advisors, Marissa Rogaro and Stacy Ricky as yearbook co-advisors, and they do a remarkable job, and I just want to publicly thank them for their willingness to do all the work that they do to make these things happen. So I'm happy to recommend that they're back for another season doing these advisements.
Thank you. Do you have any questions from the board or comments on the consent agenda as presented? Go ahead and move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays, abstentions. Brings us to the new business section of the agenda. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby approves the new business items as presented. May I have a motion, please? Thank you. And Joe, I believe you were excited to talk about, there's a lot here.
Gonna start to run out of letters. And make it
Yeah, but R is one you wanted to address. R is the request for approval to award transportation bid.
Yes. Our current contract that we had with Orange County didn't have any provisions to provide wheelchair student transportation. So we did it, and there's a couple things on the agenda tonight. There is a item P is a request to amend the emergency transportation agreement for Orange County for the service that we're doing right now in the current school year, because we didn't actually start transporting that child we originally thought it was going to be May, but we didn't start transporting the child until June 2nd. This just amends the start date. That allows the emergency contract to get all the way through the end of June. And then we did because we didn't have any provisions for it in our current Orange County contract, we did a public bid where we asked for bids for wheelchair transportation. And we did receive 2 bids, one from our current contractor and another one from West Point Tours, who is the contractor for Highland Falls Fort Macomb. And the West Point Tours bid was the lowest responsible bidder, so we're recommending 2 things. One, that we award the bid, to them, and then also that we contract with them to provide services for ESY, the summer special education program.
Any questions for Joe regarding the bid? What was needed for this? Do I have any questions on any of the other many items on the new business agenda as presented? Okay, go ahead and move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays, abstentions. Okay, that brings me to the second public comment section of this evening. I'm not going to read the paragraph again, but if anybody wishes to speak, public comment is open. I'm going to go ahead then and close public comment again and move to board member comment and other discussion. Jocelyn?
Thank you. Just congrats to Ms. Beglin and Ms. Pearl for their service and their tenureship, and then of course Sarah. Oh my God, I've never known another president besides you, pretty much. I'm so glad that we got to recognize you. I can't imagine a more diligent board president, even in Dan. I mean, Dan's gonna be great, but there's no one that can do what Sarah has committed herself to. So, thanks a lot. I speak for, I'm sure, many people. And I'm glad you're still with us because, you'll help, keep things moving the way we've been moving. I appreciate all the time. I mean, oh my God, how much time you put in. It's really amazing. I don't put in a fraction of the time. So really thank you. Okay, but also, I am a rising 8th grade parent. It's a challenge. And then finally, thanks to the district administration especially and the community, this has been a tough 5 months. I think with all aspects related to, say, DEI, just to throw it out there, DEIA, whatever we want to call it, it's been targeted by many facets, especially at the federal level. And I think it's been great that our administration has stuck with it. The committee has continued its good work. The staff and administration has continued its forceful work on it. We still have a townwide committee that's going strong. So I think it's really important that we're sticking to the values and not necessarily overreacting to things that are coming down. And I think I'm just very proud of everyone for kind of letting it keep flowing. Because as I think like and the school knows, and it's just part of what we do and the kind of inclusive culture we want to create here. No matter what anyone else tells us or threatens us with, so I appreciate it. Thanks for sticking with all of it. And otherwise, that's it.
Thank you. Eric?
Yeah, just a quick congratulatory note to Ms. Beglin and Ms. Earl as well. Also really appreciate Brian's comments about Pizza Fridays and Ted's about the SPO. Really the 2 best public comments of the year. Sorry, not sorry, everyone who stepped up earlier this year. But mostly, like Jocelyn, I want to take this opportunity to thank you, Sarah, for your service as president. I don't think there's any question that you brought a spirit and energy to this body that has made it an attractive, appealing prospect. Personally, I wouldn't be serving here if you hadn't made it possible to serve. Set Dan up for success and have increased the likelihood that others will step up as well, be motivated to run for a seat, and that they'll be set up for success. And I'm not sure that was possible before your tenure. For that, I think we, the community at large, owes you a debt of gratitude and that was exactly 94 words, 5 sentences. It took 84 seconds to make
So I too would like to thank you for your outstanding leadership as our board president. Your steady, thoughtful guidance has helped us create a space where differing opinions are respected and the focus always remains on what's best for children and not our personal preferences. So thank you for your dedication and the positive impact you've had on both Duff's and the Garrison community.
Dan, you can tell them
Well.
how great you're gonna be, right?
You
gotta sell yourself, Dan.
No, I also want to acknowledge what incredible leadership and commitment you've shown to the community and to the district. I was not here at the time, but if I'm not mistaken, your presidency started pretty much at the height of COVID, along with.
I ran my first rework meeting from a camper van with goats hitting the side of it.
I remember that.
And also with a new superintendent, right? Wasn't that exactly when Carl started?
Yeah, Carl and I opened this building without having met in person.
Yeah, so I think, it is a daunting thing to take on under any circumstances, but I think the fact that you stepped up in those circumstances is truly remarkable. And on top of it, I think this district became a model for how to run how to run a school building during COVID, and we kept kids in the class and I think mitigated some of the disruption. I think that's really a testament to everything you've done. And then, capital project, we have an extra high school choice. I think we are in excellent shape financially. I think the culture of this board is truly remarkable. Allison mentioned that during the reception, just that it's, throughout her 5 years here, it's just been a great board to work with, great leadership. And I think, as Jen said, you foster a culture where everybody feels heard and you've just got a great sort of sense of how to run these meetings. So they are very big shoes to fill. I'm very glad you're not going far. We've got you for 3 more years at least. And then, hey, we'll have another presidential election next year, so we'll see how I do. But thank you for everything.
We have faith in
So much. Peter?
This is the downside to having a last name that comes towards the
Yeah.
end. So I wanted to second what everyone said. Sarah, thank you for welcoming me to this board and encouraging me to run for the board. I've learned a lot. And your openness to everyone's voice, but still driving us to making decisions and to moving forward, I think is a real art that you do very well.
So I have to be last. It's really not fair. I mean, I can't really follow up on anything everyone else has said. You truly are, I have no doubt, the best board president in the entire country. There's no way anybody's more dedicated than you. Spends more time watching other board meetings, watching other audit committee from other schools, not even related to us. So the amount of time you put in is incredible, but you really figured out how to do it. Because of that, Dan's great hands. I was thinking, if you could start a business and probably sell consulting services to other dysfunctional boards, and they would pay you to come in and figure out what they're doing wrong. Truly, you are so that talented at doing this. So we are going to miss you. You'll be right there, though. So we thank goodness for Dan, and Dan did a great job. But truly, really, huge shoes to fill, and we will miss your leadership.
Thank you. Well, it only works because everybody has a voice at the table, and we always recognize that every voice is the same, regardless of who is showing up for weekly meetings or whatnot, which is really the only other perk of this job. And you guys have let me talk so much. So thank you for that giant plant. I will try not to kill.
You have huge, nice, fenced-in things.
Just leave it outside.
Where I'm growing my weeds right now, yeah, I
Put
got
that
a
in the
plant
window.
there. I gotta take the weeds out first. No, I really, it's been such an honor to serve in this role, and I'm so excited to continue to be able to serve on the board and have a new president come in. I think that is so important for this community to show that we can move in and out of this role and the board continues to function well and there is solid leadership. I can't imagine a more important time to highlight how necessary it is to be able to transfer back and forth the sort of leadership role, recognizing that the leadership role is really in service to all of you. It's about making sure you have what you need to be successful when you come to this table. And I think Dan really understands that, and it's going to be great for next year because what we do in our meetings every week is making sure you have the information, we're answering your questions, and that the agendas reflect what you all are interested in talking about in the community at large, and I don't think that's gonna change. Yeah. Thank you so much for supporting me for so many years. Thanks so much. I'm so excited to come here and I'll talk about it. All right, thank you all. I'm gonna wait, you can't leave just yet. We do not have executive, we have no reason to enter executive session. Adjournment. Be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby adjourns the regular meeting of June 18, 2025. May I have a motion, please? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays, abstentions. Woo, thank you. Well done.